Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today, I am joined by Cameron LiButti, founder of Bidview Marketing. Cameron works with healthcare professionals to help them improve how they attract, convert, and retain new patients in an increasingly competitive and digital-first environment. From how calls are handled at the front desk to how practices show up in AI-driven results, small details are having a bigger impact than ever. In this episode, we're breaking down what practices should be paying attention to, where opportunities are being missed, and how to build a marketing strategy that actually drives growth. So let's dive in. And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Want a cleaner workflow for orthodontic cases? Meet Clarity Solutions from Solventum, formerly 3M Healthcare. The Clarity portal puts aligners, digital bonding, and retainers in a single streamlined platform. One workflow, fewer handoffs, and more control for planning through retention. Simplify your next case. Reach out to your local Solventum sales rep today or visit us at go.solventum.com/clarity. Again, that is go.solventum.com/clarity to learn more. Hey docs, if your new patient follow-up depends on someone remembering, it's leaking revenue. Greyfinch automates new patient follow-up, texts and emails go out automatically, and your treatment coordinator just checks their tasks list to see what needs a quick call or a more personalized message. That is one of the many reasons I recommend everyone take a look at Greyfinch. It isn't just a follow-up tool, it's a complete practice management software built to help you grow and scale. Stop leaking revenue and get $500 off your startup fee with the Jill Allen special at greyfinch.com/Jill Allen. Cameron, nice to have you on Hey Docs. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Jill, for having me.
Yes. So the way I like to start off Hey Docs when we have our guests on is I love it if you could share with us just a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do with Bidview Marketing.
So my background, as I have come to learn over the last few years, is unique for marketing. I used to be an engineer, actually. And like most things in my professional life, after engineering, they were unintentional. I got into the marketing world, the agency world, after a doctor in 2019 heard me speaking, family friend heard me speaking, we were hanging out for Christmas, and he said, "You talk differently about marketing." I had been doing marketing for a company and myself for 7 years at that point. And I laughed and I said, "I have nothing to sell you." So that's probably why I talk differently. And he said, "Can you help me?" And these were the good old days of optimize a Google business profile and the phone would just start to ring. And
right.
And it was relative compared to today. What we did for him was pretty easy. And his phone calls tripled. I remember this was May of 2019. And I remember that Christmas, that following Christmas, like that December, they have a board. He was an audiologist, sells hearing aids, a board. He said in his 30 years of practice, that board had never been full, waiting for pickups, and it was full. And all at that time, it was just Google business optimization. And we still do that. I still think that's a great referral source, but that's how we got going. And then some of the other things that got me going because of the engineering career, because I didn't work in an agency, so I didn't know. Well, I had consulting experience from the engineering world. I just carried that over into the marketing world, and that unintentionally positioned my company a little differently. How do you price things? Why do we price things? How do we figure things out? I always joke that in the engineering world, I was designing mechanical systems for high rises, and so heating and cooling. If something went wrong there, I was going to get sued. The company would at least. That doesn't really happen in marketing, but I still like to I still apply similar methodologies, work my way back, meaning what's our end goal? What are we trying to do? And the best example I can give is when we work with two types of the same doctors. I have one comes to mind, middle of Nebraska. She actually has no competition in her industry. I'm sure people listening would love to be in her situation.
Say those are the diamond in the roughs, right?
She has a hungry audience and a great location. And she came to me, she said, what's this going to cost? And I said, Katie, her name's Katie. I said, I will build you a website and we'll clean everything up, but then you're good. And she said, I was paying that marketing company thousands of dollars. I said, if you want to run ads, sure, but you're by default just going to win. And so that was the engineering mentality of what do we have to do to win? And in her case, it was build a nice website, understand her position in her market, make sure the website stays clean and optimized. But after that, there wasn't a whole lot of people to beat. On the flip side, we have practices in Manhattan. It doesn't stop, right? It doesn't stop. We are just bombarded with competition and ads and marketing. We have a client there is now competing against a funded startup, which is just mind-blowing we found out how much money they're spending. And it's just, they're willing to operate at a loss. So you're just competing completely differently. And so that, again, it's like, what are we trying to do? Let's work our way back. And that's the foundation of where I came from and how Bidview started.
Yeah, I love that. It's always fun to hear those foundation stories and hear how people got into the industry. So I know we're going to have this really great talk about marketing today. And I know that marketing, it doesn't matter if we're talking about dental specialty, audiology, all of it. There are fundamental pieces that are important no matter which specialty we're in. And one of the topics that I wanted to talk to you about and just get your opinion on, because I think this is really changing in our industry. And I think some of this is driven by just the generations that are now entering our practices. We've got such a vast array of patients that could be coming in from the tail end of baby boomers all the way up in our ortho industry, all the way into alphas now, and how we are marketing to all these different generations. And one of the things that has really changed in our ortho industry is the idea of picking up our phones, answering that new patient phone call, and people asking that very transparent question, how much does this cost? And we can have to deal with that from our websites. We can have to deal with that from our phone calls. And I'm curious to get your take from a marketing perspective on what should we be thinking about. In the past, in our industry, it was like such taboo. We never say anything, and we give these vast, it could be $1 to $10,000. It really, really depends on your case, this, that, or the other. And so I think this will be just a great discussion to hear your point of view from a marketing, knowing that you work in a lot of different industries outside of just our specialty. What do you think practices should be thinking about when they get that question asked to them and how they should be positioning themselves?
So you said it, positioning themselves. So work back from your position in your industry. So there's no hard and fast answer that I will give you here. I will say it depends on who you are. And so there are college classes that are all about pricing, right? So you can go take those classes and what's the most efficient pricing model for said service or product. We have clients that put their pricing on their website. We have clients that won't give it to you until you're ready to make the purchase. And then we have others that will talk to you on the phone. In our healthcare practices, some take insurance, some don't. So that's another part of the equation of, do we want to put this on our website? And so know your position in the market. So obviously you could have high volume, low cost. Is that the type of position you have in your market? In those situations, usually you position with your pricing. So Costco comes to mind. Whether you're buying hearing aids or eyeglasses from Costco, their market position is that this is cheaper. So if you'd like to compete, if in the hearing aid world, it's called a dispenser, or in the orthodontics world, if you have a low cost solution, you can anchor against pricing. And I would recommend that you probably do that. If you are, and this gets a little sensitive depending on the doctor, but all being healthcare, some see themselves as, we are healthcare and these devices just help us do our job, right? It's a different position to have. And so in those cases, you really need to sit down and map out why your healthcare solutions are better. And so if we're working with a private practice that is cash only, everything about that pricing model has to be tight.
Sure.
The other thing about that is you have to consider where you're located. So I'm in Chicago. Chicago has a wide range of demographics and income levels. One of our practices is in probably one of the top 10 wealthiest zip codes in the country. She can do things in her practice that just would not work anywhere else. Her office looks like an Apple store. It is just, but the net worth of the people just strolling by every day. So it works for her. She can charge people to come back in to do rehabilitation that just insurance doesn't cover. And so she understands that's her position. She understands that at her other location down in the city, she's just competing on price. And so she gets that. So you have to look at where you're located. Can your patients or potential patients support that? I'm getting a lot of holistic doctors contacting me right now, and they are operating more like financial advisors, right? So I've worked with a handful, and the financial advisor always goes, where can I get $1 million net worth people? I laugh. I'm like, they're not online. They're at the golf course. They're making friends. So you better figure out how to get into those circles. That is your clientele. We can make pretty websites, but the phone's not going to blow up. On the flip side, if you want to compete with Costco, the phone's going to ring a lot. So understanding where you align in your position, and you're in marketing, this is a faux pas when somebody says, I serve everybody. Do you really?
Yes. Yeah.
You don't. And everybody I've gotten to narrow down has had much better financial success once they identify that.
Yeah. And I really like what you had to say there, because I think for a lot of my listeners that are listening right now, especially if you're a startup practice or a new practice, one of the things that you have to focus on is how are you going to position yourself in the market that you're coming into. And to your point, Cameron, if you think that, yes, I'm just going to treat everybody, yes, I'm going to serve everybody, that's okay. That may be the first level. I want to provide care to everybody, but who really are you? You've got to dial that in and really think about that. To your point, or you're just going to have this really watered down, marketing, I think, presence out there. And when we think about do we put pricing on or not? I love what you said. It may be very appropriate for some of you docs to say, yes, absolutely. I'm really going after that Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Z market. And I want transparency. I want to lead with transparency. That's part of my core values. And I want to have an easy access for patients to have an understanding of where my pricing is going to be. Or to your point, you may be more a boutique, you're setting up a more boutique practice, and it wouldn't make sense for you necessarily, because that kind of takes some of the allure of what am I getting when I go in there and I get to meet this doctor, right? So I love the idea of working with a marketing company to help you also develop out what that means, instead of just taking this blanket approach. I heard in the Facebook group that I need to put my fees on my website, or I need to answer to the penny what my fees are going to be if somebody calls in, and therefore that's what I'm going to do. And there isn't really a strategy behind it.
Yeah, always knowing with who you are. You bring up an important point about when somebody calls. That I think that's one of the most overlooked areas of business improvement, because it kind of, operations people know it, but if you're not with a good operations person or consultant, that can get overlooked, and the marketers tend not to touch it. I don't know about you, but I end up somewhere blurring the lines with operations when I find out, like, hey, your close rates are low or your appointment rates are low. It's like, all right, what are your, I call them SOPs, but what are your phone answering protocols? And the bigger the practice gets, the more access you have to technology that can help you dial that in. So that's the other piece to what do we price? Like, how do you answer that phone, answer that question?
And I say this all the time to my doctors when I'm working with them, You can throw all kinds of money at marketing, but if you don't know how to close and you don't know how to, get the
Yeah.
patient from contact to contract, you're
Mm.
just spending a whole lot of money in marketing.
Well,
And so it really is so important. There's two sides to that coin. There is the what are you doing and what strategy are you taking and the positioning and how those funds are being spent, but also what are you doing to make sure if you do get them in the door,
yeah.
what is happening, or you get them to actually reach out and contact you through that email or through the text bot on your website or through the
Mhm.
phone, however that's going to be. So
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit now. And the hot topic is AI, right? Almost to the point of, oh my gosh, not another discussion on AI. But I think it's a really fun topic to have with my marketers that come onto HeyDocs, because it is just such an evolving beast right now. And what we were talking about even 6 months ago, 8 months ago, is constantly changing when we're kind of putting on that AI lens when we're looking at our marketing efforts. And I want to hear your perspective on what are you seeing right now that we should be paying attention to, knowing that somebody could listen to this podcast 2 years from now and be like, yeah, that is so old news. But I mean,
Yeah.
we're living in it right now. We're living in that turnover right now. But what do you think practices should be paying attention to when we think about, especially now, this AI driven search? Because I think that's just rocked our world. We went from keyword searches and ad spend and all these different things. And now we're having to totally reevaluate the way our website is worded. We may have just done a brand new website and be like, oh, shoot, that doesn't really have any questions on it or doesn't have anything that AI can read. So I'd love to hear your thought on what do we need to be paying attention to right now, 2026, and maybe if you've got a little bit of a crystal ball
A little bit,
into
a little bit.
27.
So I like to start. There's a lot of history that people don't know about, but I always like to start with AI defining it, because if you are not in the space, so again, I unintentionally walked backwards into this last summer. I have been part of the AI community pretty much since I started Bidview. I had a developer license into GPT-2. And so that you don't meet many people that were like in
Yes.
it then. So I was early on it. But I like to define what AI is before we move into talking about what you asked. So you defined one side of it, which is AI search. To me, we use the words AI. That's not really what AI is, and we'll get into that, but I do that all the time. The other side of AI is the AI is going out and doing things. And if you're curious about that, I'd love to talk about that topic. I have a whole computer in my office dedicated to just running AIs. But on the AI search, this is really helpful for a history lesson. Google in 2015-16, up until that point, they had a little over 10,000 people on staff that every day showed up and tweaked the dials to the algorithm. Most people don't know that. And I forgot exactly, but it was like hundreds of teams of 50 they had, and they would all be responsible for different parts. And then Google, one of the there's very few actors in the AI space that have gotten us here today, which is also an incredible story. They were one of the few actors that started to figure out machine learning. And so it was always referred to as machine learning. And Google in 2015-16 switched from a human-led algorithm to machine learning-led algorithm. Machine learning is what AI was, what AI is. It just was rebranded sometime in 2019-ish, when OpenAI kind of started to come onto the scene. But the machine learning algorithm was just based on actions people would take on Google, and Google would self-learn and self-correct. And at that time, it was roughly twice a year that the algorithm would update. And now we've transitioned into 2026, where every CEO is like, I need to be doing AI optimization. Hold on a second. What exactly are we optimizing for, and why is it different than what we've been doing, what you should have been doing for the last 10 years? And I'm finding out that most people just weren't doing the right things anyway for the last 10 years. I would tell everybody to calm down on panicking over crazy changes and understand that the machine we have today, these AI, so the big three are going to be Google Gemini, ChatGPT, and then Claude. Those are still very much prediction engines. And where do they get their information, right? There was court cases over this, but they scraped Google's results. Where do Google's results come from? They come from, and when people are selling AI services or solutions and they're like, we can rank you, we can do this. My first question is, show me a business that is not ranking in the top 3 in Google results that is ranking in AI. So I'll say that again. How many businesses can you find that rank in AI but don't rank in traditional search engine? You will be hard pressed to figure that one out because they're scraping Google. They're looking at Google. That's where the data is indexed. That's where the data is housed. That's where the data is organized. And these prediction machines are learning. That's not to say that they are slightly different. There are some differences, but I would tell a business owner that the difference isn't focusing on the optimization of AI. It's focusing on your PR. It's, are you showing up on YouTube? Are people, if Reddit is a big in your industry, are people talking to you about you on Reddit? Are you posting on LinkedIn? Are you doing what I refer to in technical optimization citations? What a business owner should think about is just good PR. Yeah. Are you doing those things? Because those are the little differences. Did you get listed? Did you sponsor your kids' little league? Did you are you part of the community? We have practices that get involved with the local radio stations. And so those are the little data points that I would say can help with AI. It's going to help with traditional SEO too. It just seems if we are to kind of draw a line and figure out where the differences are, that's where it is. And then if I have a crystal ball, the SEO people of the world don't like me to say this, but we're going to look back in a couple of years and be like, can you remember the days we just sorted through all of those listings on the internet? It's just a more efficient way to go about it, right? Like you just ask AI, you talk to it, you give it how you're feeling, any data you have, and it starts to build an understanding of who you are, and it'll give you the right results. So to a business owner, to me, to you, that sounds stressful because how do we map that data? How do we define that data? How do we look at that data? Pretty much right now, there's a few that may be starting to figure it out, but none of the AI trackers I'm very confident in. I still use the traditional SEO tools to look at keywords because it's still the best breadcrumb trail to figure this out. But we don't have great insights. And the reason we don't have great insights is because this was an example I gave to a friend the other day. I type in pizza. Jill, you type in pizza. For me, that means I want to go buy pizza. For you, that means you want a pizza recipe. The AIs are going to know this about us. Google kind of already does, and the AIs are going to get really good at it. And so as a SEO company or marketing company that needs to look at data, I can't take the Jill Allen ICP and stick it, right? We have to, and it's very hard data to map. So the data is going to get murky here soon, but today it's still traditional SEO. It is making all of the outputs a little wonky, but don't panic. Still do the right things.
Yeah, I love that. And this is, we're kind of like the Wild West right now. It is really, and I'm not in the industry at all the way you are. And I look at it and I look what's happening with my clients and and everybody's kind of got a different idea or thought on it. And I love the way you just explained that because it seems very easy to understand. So I appreciate the history lesson there. And now a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Are you thinking about opening an orthodontic practice? I know, it's a big decision, but saving 25% on the ADEC equipment you need to get started, that's an easy one. Because ADEC has a special program called Smart Start, designed to help you launch your first practice. You get up to 25% off your ADEC orthodontic equipment and furniture. You also get complimentary services to help you run and grow your business. And my favorite part, access to the Smart Start pricing for 2 whole years after you open your doors. That gives you flexibility to add more chairs as your cash flow grows. It's pretty smart. As an orthodontist, you care about getting all the little details right, and ADEC really got it right with this program. So if starting off with a big savings on ADEC equipment sounds good to you, the ADEC Smart Start is definitely worth a closer look. Just follow the link in the show notes to learn more. I am kind of curious. This is a total side rabbit trail, and we don't have to go too far down it. But I'm kind of curious what's going to happen, because even though Gemini, Claude, and Chatterall, as you said, kind of scraping what Google, what Google is finding, where my mind goes is you may rank differently depending upon who your bot is that you use, I would think. And I'm curious to know, because if we were to say, how do you rank on Google? Google is one, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of the master, that. And if I'm a chat and you're a Gemini bot user, and that's who we're using to source our information and whatnot, we could be fed. I'm curious. I'm not making a statement here. I'm wondering, could we be fed different information, even though it's still coming out of Google, just depending upon who our preference is in?
So my belief is that, so today it's not really working like that yet. It's showing signs of it, but yes. So a good way to understand this is not to actually look at AI, is to jump, if you're married, if you have a spouse, look at their Instagram feed and look at the ads they get delivered, and then look at your Instagram feed and look at the ads you get delivered, how different they are, right? Like the social media have perfected this. They know who you are, right? Like, and now people might argue that there was some issues with Meta potentially listening to you. However, they just have you mapped so well. They don't need to actively listen to you when I go, I should buy vitamin D. They don't, right? They're mapping you and your purchase behavior so well that it feels predictive in that moment. But the AIs will get there too. The more you use them. So Claude now pushed a persistent memory update. Claude, my company uses all three, but I personally use Claude the most. And so Claude remembers, like it knows who some of the people on my team are and staff are. It's going to remember those things. If you're just using this as like a casual user, it will start to build a profile who you are. And then to your point, eventually the assumption is, yes, you will get very different results. Let's say I went to this chiropractor and I went to this dentist, and it's, hey, I need an orthodontist, and it will recognize things about those. It'll compare those to me, like, oh, he really enjoyed seeing those doctors. I think he should go see this. And I assume that's where we will get to. It brings us all the way back to some of our earlier conversations. Your positioning matters, right? Like who you serve matters, and it's going to become more important. Yeah, just to recap, it's not there today, but it does feel like it's going there.
Yeah. This will be fun to have a conversation in a couple of years about this and be like, all right, but remember when we talked about it's here, or it never went here and it went totally to the right or to the left. So thank you for entertaining my little rabbit trail there. Let's kind of swing it back into the practice now, and let's kind of go, maybe we'll go more concrete, a little more traditional when we think about marketing. And I would love to hear your perspective, because competition is competition. I always tell my doctors, even if you find that diamond in the rough practice, it's only a matter of time before you have competition. I mean, lucky for you that you got there first, but somebody will always be coming in later. And I would love to hear your perspective on, what do you think we need to be doing as practitioners and business owners, as far as getting ahead, I'll say. And in our world, we like to say, oh, we're not competitors. But the reality of it is we all have a business to run. We all want our lion's share of the patient pool that's out there. And I'd love to hear what you think about that, and maybe what practices are missing, maybe some of those fundamental pieces that they may be missing or just aren't thinking about.
So we've talked a lot about positioning. So let's jump past it. Let's say you know who you are. The next question is, if you are entering a market, let's say you're a new practice, you brought that up a couple times. How do you plan to get your first patients? Hopefully you already have experience in this industry. I would assume you do if you're in medical. But in most of the practices I've worked with that have launched, they've usually left some type of large medical situation, whether it be a hospital or some medical network, and they're starting out on their own. So there's a few things you want to do immediately. It's figure out, you likely are not allowed to contact your past patients. They will be looking for you though. And so it's figure out how to get your name up, whether it be, and we should actually dig into this a little bit more if we have a moment on the difference, the way the different generations use the internet.
Let's go. You take the conversation.
Depending on where your generations, I have a lot to say about that. But before I get into that, depending on where your generations are coming, you want to be posting, like if it's more baby boomers, make sure you're on Facebook. You could even, in even like older school locations, more traditional, posting in the newspaper might be a right place to do. But figure out how to get your name out there. If you are building your website, make sure you have your practitioner page. I can't tell you how many medical websites I go into and they just have an about page and it's like they're listed there. No, you need to have Dr. Jill Allen needs website.com/Dr. Jill Allen page, and it needs to be robust because Google will pick that up quickly. And as people search for you, your brand will show up. So what's your initial plan to make sure you're being found? Hopefully you've done the math and that can sustain your current iteration of practice. The second step, this is where it gets a little technical. This is usually where we start. It's look at the competition. So we map the competitors, and they might not be your competitor from a positioning standpoint, but if someone's typing in orthodontist and they're showing up above you, they are your competitor digitally at least. And so we start to look at how many reviews do they have? How long has that website been up? What is this is technical, but what is their digital authority? And there's a number to assign to that. Those are things you have to consider. And then how close, proximity wise, is your office to theirs? That's really important. Now, while you might have competition in a radius, ideally you aren't in the parking lot with a practice that's been around for 30 years and has been running digital marketing since 2000. That is a tough hill to climb. I would say you better have a robust budget and a strong stomach to compete because it takes time. We've worked in personal injury. There is no more difficult of an industry in the United States than personal injury. Those guys, they will crawl over glass to win. Right. Sure. And when it makes up 3% of our national GDP, you understand, like they're willing to do what it takes. But it's all competition. There are no rules with those guys. And you don't see that in the medical industry. But just my point is, know who your competitors are. If maybe you do have a strong competitor, but you're 10 miles away, it's going to be a lot easier to grab some early clients early on. And then do the math on the reviews. Build an incredible, robust review strategy. And review strategies, I'm agnostic. I don't care how you do it. I just care that it gets done. And it has to be consistent and you have to do it. And one of the things about review strategies for a young practice, they all just want to go to the technology solutions. They get contacted. As soon as you set up your business, the phone blows up with review builders. I prefer a manual. People don't know this, but review building actually came out of the food industry, right? So hundreds of people coming through the door at a restaurant, how do we get reviews, right? And then those review companies said, we should increase our revenue. We should sell this to other practices or businesses. And so review management became, head off a bad review. It is so rare when the owner of a practice is seeing patients that they get bad reviews, right? Owners just care so much about their business. I would say don't jump into those. Figure out why people leave you reviews. Figure out how to ask them for reviews. Get comfortable asking for reviews. Tell them how important it is to your business, but come up with a strategy. The best strategy I can give came out of the real estate industry. My friend, he asks for a Google review and they never leave it ever. And then he sends an email 1 week later, says, somebody told me the link was broken. Here it is again. Because everybody intends, if they like you, they intend to leave you a review, but life is busy. He sends it a week later. It is like he bats like
That's
1,000
golden. That's golden.
email.
I love that.
So I recommend doing it manually. If you don't want to do it manually, a hybrid approach where you are telling them, hey, you're going to get an email or a text message, it's really helpful. But the provider saying that makes a world of difference over maybe a front desk person. The email can, if you want to do the email thing that I just said, it can come from the front office, but it should be signed as if it came from the doctor. Those are some little things early on with competitors to figure out. And I can go on. We don't start working with anybody without doing competitor analysis because, like I said, if you're in Manhattan, I need to see what paid ads look like. I need to see everything. Versus if I Google your industry and you're in the middle of nowhere or a suburb with very little competition, it just changes the calculus on what we have to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'm gonna circle us back around because you teased us. I'm curious to know your thought on the generation component. If you don't mind talking about that, because especially in our industry, like I was saying, we've got all of the different generations, and I love that you're bringing up. They do interact with us differently.
Very differently. So I have said audiology a few times. We do work with a lot of audiology practices. People who get fit with hearing aids are generally baby boomers. However, they're not always the ones doing the searching or making the appointments. And so is it their millennial children? Sometimes it would be, if it's a silent generation, which still goes into those practices, it might be their Gen X children. So who are you speaking to digitally if you're online? Who are you marketing to? And marketing to millennials, I'm a millennial. We would rather text message you. We are going to be more comfortable with AI. There's a lot of different uniqueness to that. Know who you're talking to. First of all, who are you speaking to? It might not be your actual patient. If you're Gen Z, you're marketing to Gen Z, they're going to be on TikTok. I would say, get comfortable being in front of a camera because that's where those people are going to be. So again, back to positioning, who are generally your patients that are making the appointment or the person making the appointment, look at that. And then the other thing to start, this is like, I coach a lot of practices on this. How did people find you? And so a lot of people will just put, the internet. No, did you find me on social media? Did you Google me? Did you find me on Google Maps? Did you find me on AI or ChatGPT? Very important data. It's getting more important. Last year, 2 years ago, if someone said social media or Google, that was good enough. But I want to know if they believe they found you on AI. And so we work with a tax attorney, and this caught me really off guard. His SEO results were going really well. Most medical practices don't see more than 5% of their leads come from AI today. It is increasing. And we started talking, just reviewing some of his data, and he said, I'm getting between 30 and 45% of my leads from ChatGPT. So hold on a second. This is just statistically such an outlier. I was like, we have to figure this out. Yes. And so he's a tax attorney. So what was happening? Nobody in tax law gets a referral because if you're in tax trouble, you're embarrassed to ask a friend for who we go to. And so SEO for him has always been a fantastic marketing channel for him. But now what's happening is people are going straight to they're panicking. Am I going to jail? And they're talking to AI. And the AIs are smart enough to say, hey, you need to talk to a tax attorney. I have a great one that's in your area. And that's how our client was getting referred to. I tell that story. If you are in understanding the emotional state of somebody when they're searching, helps you understand where they're going to be, not just necessarily generational. Baby boomers tend to not. They will use AI, but they're going to use it as a search engine. So they're not talking. It's just, hey, dentist near me. They're still typing in like they're using Google. So your typical SEO results will work there. But when you get down, they're going to start having more conversations with it. And you said this early about having questions on your website, but are you answering those questions? Are these AIs able to see that you have good resources about these topics? And then if it is an emergency, like tooth hurts, I know you work with orthodontists, but I'm thinking like dentists, like emergency tooth extraction, like they're panicking, they're in pain. They're going to start talking to AI because it will feel like it's giving them results faster. In the audiology industry, we don't tend to see that. It takes months. Their wife or husband has to be like, you can't hear me for 6 months. And then they get into a situation like, yeah, I guess I really can't hear. I probably should call somebody. So ChatGPT isn't the first place they go, they tend to say, I should find a doctor.
Sure.
But the more emergent the situation is, the more likely they will be to go to the AIs, because it feels like they're getting custom care faster. And at the end of that pipeline, it's compressing that. I call it speed to lead, but it's compressing that. If you are that practice, they'll come in that way. So back to that data, very important to be asking. Try to be a little bit more specific, get them to answer that, and see. You should see, as the adoption of AI continues to go, you should see more people checking that box. The AI we have today, really quick, has only really been around since December 5th. People don't know that, but that was when Claude released Opus, and that was this AI boom we're seeing over the last 4 months, is that everyone finally realized, like, oh, these things are really good. So if you haven't used AI since after December 5th, you are probably in for a bit of a surprise on just how much it can do for you today. It's quite different. So generationally, understand who you are, and then understand how they might be searching for your types of services.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. We're going to wrap it up here in just a minute. I'm going to have one more question, because I think this is always something that comes up. And again, I do a lot with startups, is just what should we be thinking about when it comes to, we've been talking about marketing strategy a little bit, but also just the spend part of it. What should we be thinking about when we're thinking about spend? And I think that can be a big, it can have a lot of meanings, because it could mean ad spend, it could mean website design. There's just so much that goes into that. And I would love to hear your perspective, because obviously it's going to probably be a little different if you're a brand new startup practice that's getting in and you got X amount of dollars earmarked towards getting that splash, to maybe more of an established practice that's just wanting to make sure they're keeping their presence up. So I'd love you to field that question.
Yeah, this is such a fascinating topic for me, because when I came in from the engineering, I was like, how does everything get priced? And everyone's, I don't know, these are standard. Why are they so standard? But everybody's so different. That never sat well with me. So it's really, when we price people, it's like, what do you want to do? And if you say, hey, I'm here to compete with Amazon, okay, like, we're going to have to build a pretty big team, and you better have some deep pockets. But like, they're like, strategically, let's map that out. Now, in the local setting, that usually doesn't happen. We are working with a real estate agent in a very prominent second home ski location. And so when he came to us, and he's there, like, you have to pull out all the stops. I need the most beautiful concierge feeling website. And I was like, are you sure? And I was like, this is going to be expensive. He's all in. I'm like, so are you hiring videography team? Oh yeah, doing it all. And so when I said, okay, just our portion alone is going to be $60,000. And then you need to spend $10,000 to $20,000 on a videographer. He's all right, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, okay, when his average client is purchasing a $5 million home, like, these are the things he's going to do to win. On the flip side, we had young 30-ish old doctors in Texas, and they were leaving a hospital. They were scraping pennies together to get
still on ramen.
Yeah. What was the lowest cost thing we could do to get them going? What does that website look like? Can we get a website up for less than $5,000? And what are the little pieces we can get so that they can get going? The thing that you shouldn't ever short is your photography. Like, I am a firm believer of that. My wife is an IBCLC now, which is a breastfeeding or lactation consultant. And so she's just doing this. She's a lactation coordinator for a hospital. So she was just doing this on the side. And she said, what do I spend my money on? And I said, get a photographer. And everybody who sees her brand, like, she has hospital systems calling her going, hey, can I speak to you? Like, her website it helps that she's married to me, but her website, they're like, can we speak to the practice manager? She's laughing. It's just me. But she didn't, I would love to say, yes, we did a great design, and we did, but it is all fundamentally her photography. So earmark the dollars for your photography in the early days. If you have never done photography, she hired hair and makeup for that day. Do those things. And it might feel, depending on where you are, it might feel like a lot of money, but spend it there. A good photographer generally is going to be between $1,000 and $2,000. And you can use that on social media. If you put up a single page website, you can use it there. So that's more on the website side. On The SEO side, I'll just touch on it briefly. I have a very unique way to look at this, but basically I benchmark you against your competitors and then I just calculate backwards. I'm like, this is the price. If you can't compete there, you need to understand that they're going to continue to outpace you until you can spend that amount to catch them. Be very transparent about that. That can be an uncomfortable conversation if you're a young new practice. You're like, I can't compete with that. You have to understand that's a $5, $7, $10 million practice that has been doing this for 20 years. And this is what they're spending. This is what they're doing. On the paid ad side, it's usually a little bit of an easier dip your toe in, although it's 2026. It's not as easy as it once was.
Yeah.
So the way I look at paid ads is that you're buying data and you need to optimize to that purchased data. So what I always do is, and I'll give you some specific, if you can't tell, I like numbers.
Yeah, I love it.
So what I always do is I look at what would it cost for 100% market share. Google will give you that number. You never, ever spend 100%. You never actually spend more than 50%. But what 100% tells us is how big your marketplace really is. So I did this exercise recently. I was in Tampa. I was working in Tampa Bay. I think 100% market share was like $80,000 a month. And then, And then I was looking, I think, at Fort Wayne, Indiana, and 100% market share, I want to say $2,000 a month. That gives you an idea of the different market sizes. Like if you are in a niche or an industry and you have a friend in a different city, this is what I spend. You're not, you might be in the same industry, but there are very different calculations here. So I look at what is 25 to 50% of that. That's pretty much the maximum you can spend. So now you have an idea. If I want to buy all of the impressions related to my industry, this is what I can work my way up to. Rule of thumb in a local medical practice, it tends to be somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a month for at minimum 3 months to buy enough data before you can optimize to. So you can get enough data at that price point to optimize. If it is really competitive and the practice is young, it can be a really fantastic place to start, but you are buying data. The days of ads on and off, that whiplash doesn't work anymore. Google is going to reward their advertisers that are with them long-term. So they calculate that into your results. And then as far as like where you send that traffic, that's a whole other conversation, but those would be the big buckets. And then on social media, we don't get involved too much on social media because it is so hard for a remote agency to do it for you. It's hard. I would love, people offer to pay us all the time. It's like, if I'm not in your practice driving this, I can't, I want to see results. I've seen a lot of success around the young Gen Z, tend to be women, excited. They want to be part of the business. They do a really good job. And I would say make it fun. I have a practice in New Jersey. She had no money. She had no money. And she's, what can I do? I'm going to get on TikTok. I'm just going to be myself on TikTok. She has millions of followers now across TikTok and YouTube. And now she works with us, and she's comfortably into that 7-figure range. But when she started, she was a 6-figure company and had to find her ways around it. And that became kind of part of her and her practice managers. They weren't seeing patients. They were being silly on TikTok. It worked. It worked really well. On the social media side, we will edit. We will do some stuff. The law firms, we can produce dry educational content, so it works. But the dry educational content in medical is not there anymore. It's just, we don't, at least I don't. I assume if you have the doctor, the MD, you should kind of know what you're doing if you've got good reviews. Now, if I see your personality, I'm like, oh, I really like him or her. That would be a cool person to see. And we're starting to see this shift. Like if you post personal stuff and not inappropriate personal stuff. I went on a ski trip, or, hey, I sponsored a Little League, those types of personal things where it doesn't have to be super personal, but hey, so-and-so got married, or our dog's in the office today. Those types of things, that type of personality does really well. We're all so used to seeing it and making it. It's just such a part of our lives that 5 years ago, the doctors would be like, oh my gosh, I couldn't. So my lighting isn't right, or if I'm not sitting down. The practices that do really well with this will be like the med spas. If you ever want to see what good social media and medical looks like, med spas or plastic surgeons tend to do really well with those.
Yeah. It's like humanizing the the doctor or,
Yeah.
getting past that white coat syndrome and
Mhm.
seeing them as a human. Well, this has been fabulous. I'm just like, oh, this is great. I know that we could just keep this going, but we're going to have to bring it to an end here. Cameron, if somebody wants to learn more about Bidview marketing or connect with you about just marketing strategies, so they're like, wow, I heard something I haven't heard before. I really like where his head is at with reverse engineering, what marketing looks like. What's going to be the best way that they can get a hold of you or find out a little bit more about the company?
So bidviewmarketing.com, if you message us there, it goes to me and goes to our account manager, Erica. I try to be active on LinkedIn, so I am posting there. So if you want to just message me on LinkedIn, I will probably respond to you and pretty quickly. Those would be the two best places to get to me. And my email's Cameron@bidviewmarketing.com. So those are the 2.5, 3 best ways to get to me.
That's great. That's great. And now a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite because every smile deserves a suite of excellence. The way I like to finish up our Hey Docs episodes is I always like to do a little speed round with the guests. Are you up for a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I haven't talked you out yet. So, all right, here we go. What is one daily habit or ritual that helps you stay productive and balanced?
Oh, exercise. Yeah, easy. That's easy. That's easy.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. If you could add, this is a fun one. If you could add one unconventional perk to an everyday office workplace, what would you want to add?
Perk. If it's an office with people, I would say arcade game type stuff.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. All right. And then last one for you. What is one piece of advice you wish you had followed earlier in your career?
Oh, man, that's probably a psychiatry session. I was stubborn. I was so stubborn. Just do things. Like we get so accustomed to reading everything online or anywhere, books. I read a lot of books too. I have tons of books behind me, but I wanted all the knowledge, and most of the knowledge is gained through doing things. So That was probably like, hey, I keep reading, but go do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on Hey Docs. Thank you so much. And I look forward to having you on again.
Thanks, Jill.
All right. See ya.
Bye.